What is the difference between integration and reunification? Through all the various journeys that I share, both of them are being accomplished, but they're two different things that mean different things, work in different ways, and have different effects on personal experience from the inside out. So what's the difference between integration and reunification? And what are the similarities? Integration has to do with brain-body wiring. Reunification has to do with parts of self, aspects of self-essence. That's the major difference, and we'll explore both of them a little bit here. So thanks for being here, and thanks for being you. Integration has to do with brain-body wiring. When there's integration, pieces of memory data are getting connected in new ways. Pieces of navigational patterns are getting connected in new ways. Aspects of left-right brain hemisphere are being connected in new ways. And when this happens, the body-mind gets this upgrade, and it's able to navigate life more effectively. And that also positively affects regulation, which references the navigation, regulation, correlation method I developed through my Implicit Revelations case study. So integration has to do with brain-body wiring. Integration can affect different things in different ways throughout brain-body systems. For example, if you're connecting a piece of unconscious memory data with a piece of conscious memory data, or an aspect of the right brain hemisphere with the left brain hemisphere, that integration might be a little different than integrating aspects of the nervous system. And if you're integrating data from childhood with recent data from adulthood, that might look different from integrating a piece of implicit or procedural memory data with an explicit autobiographical narrative. And so there's different ways of integrating, but it's all parts of the brain-body wiring. And this can upgrade and expand the navigational systems in the body-mind. Reunification has to do with parts of self. Consciousness exists and operates independently of brain-body structures, which is why it has power, authority, and infinite opportunity to resculpt brain-body wiring and shapeshift personal reality from the inside out. If the self was the same thing as the brain-body wiring, then identity would be the same thing as personal experience, and there wouldn't be any power in between it all, because it's just who you are and how things are, and that's it. But that's not the whole story. The story is there's these experiential elements of life that are being translated into personal experience through the brain-body wiring, and none of that has anything to do with the essence of self or the identity of self. Then there's all the parts of self and the inner experiencer and the awareness of self, who exists and operates independently of all of that, and therefore has power, authority, and opportunity, influence throughout it all. And so reunification has to do with parts of self. Reunification, though, implies that they weren't unified beforehand. If you're reunifying parts of self, that means that before this process, they were not unified. What does that mean? And if you're integrating parts of the brain-body wiring, that means they were not integrated before. What does that look like? Okay, we'll look at both of these. Brain-body wiring first. If things are not integrated, that means that there was some experience that didn't get fully processed and stored in navigational patterns to effectively navigate life in the most optimal way. Those could be moments of unprocessed emotions. Those could be moments of incomplete action patterns. Those could be experiences where navigational tendencies shifted and were organized through independent structures in the body-mind, which is something I call body-mind islands. There were these navigational patterns, but then life was being navigated in a totally different way. And so then there's these other navigational patterns that aren't actually connected with those. And that can happen for a variety of reasons that I talk about more in other videos. But if you're integrating brain body wiring, that means they were not integrated, not fully connected, not fully processed, not fully stored, not fully effectively sculpted in the wiring beforehand. So how did that happen? A lot of times it's because of moments of unfulfilled attachment needs. If there's a moment where you don't feel seen, if there's a moment where you don't feel loved, if there's a moment that you don't feel celebrated, if there's a moment that you don't feel safe, if there's a moment that you don't feel protected or provided for, if there's a moment where you don't feel supported, if there's a moment where you don't feel connected, if there's a moment where you don't feel closeness or collaboration or community or connectedness, if there's a moment where you don't feel respected, if there's a moment where you don't feel embraced, if there's a moment where you don't feel like you have directional guidance and you're just like, no idea what's going on, if there's a moment where you don't feel like you have opportunistic space to like be yourself or do what you want to do or feel what you need to feel, if there isn't an opportunity and space for you to do and be and have and say and feel and move in the way that you want or need to, if there's a moment where you don't feel like you're allowed to be yourself, if you're a moment where you don't feel like you're allowed to speak your mind or feel your emotions or say your own truth or whatever it might be, if you don't feel like you're allowed to be you in some way, if there's a moment of unfulfilled attachment needs, then the experience in that moment disrupts how that data is being processed and stored in brain-body wiring. And that creates the disintegrated data that later needs to be integrated. And again, this can show up in explicit, implicit memories, memories from each year of life, navigational patterns with different navigational priorities, data throughout different brain hemispheres or nervous systems. There's a lot of different things that can go into that, but the core cause, most, if not all of the time, is because there were moments of unfulfilled attachment needs. And now the experiences, the navigational patterns, the patterns of thinking, feeling, moving, and responding, the data throughout all the different regulational systems, including brain hemispheres and nervous systems, that data isn't storing content to navigate and regulate life effectively, and or the data isn't connected in its most optimal way, and then it needs to be integrated, okay? And if there's reunification of self aspects, which is different because self and brain body wiring are not the same thing, right? Okay. If there's reunification that needs to go on, why? That means that parts of self weren't unified before, and then they need to be reunified. What happened to make the parts of the self not unified in the first place? Well, one thing is moments of unfulfilled attachment needs created this disintegrated body-mind wiring, and the self is flowing through these structures. The self is not the same thing as the structures of the brain and the body, but it is flowing through these structures of the brain and the body, and is experiencing life through the automated projections of navigation and regulation in the brain and body. And so if parts of self aren't unified, they might be in body-mind islands, not knowing about the parts of self on those other body-mind islands. Parts of self might be trapped in projections of unprocessed emotions or incomplete action patterns. There's all these other parts of self going on and living every moment of every day, but then there's some parts of self that are actually in that moment where the body is having this survival response, but it's beyond awareness, and the self up here is just like, yeah, everything's fine. I'm here, right? So there might be parts of self stuck in incomplete action patterns. Or if data from each year of life doesn't have full connection throughout its intel, then parts of self from this time period of life might not fully know about the parts of self who are over here in a new experience, for example. And another layer and aspect of this is that the self never got to know its own self independent of experience. The identity of self never got to know who and what it actually is beyond the automated projections of body-mind navigation and the instinctive sensations of personal experience. And that's like a whole another layer and level of reunification of self, is going beyond the identity of experience, going beyond self-associations through the brain-body wiring, through the body-mind navigation. So we reunify parts of self in the process of integration, because as we integrate brain-body wiring, we're not integrating parts of the self, we're actually integrating brain-body wiring. As we integrate brain-body wiring, then the parts of self who are flowing through that information and experiencing life through the navigational, regulational projections of the body-mind have a greater chance to connect with more parts of the self independently of those unprocessed emotions or incomplete action patterns or body-mind islands or moments of unfulfilled attachment needs or disruption of navigational, regulational patterns and protocols. But then as all of that happens, and the brain and the body are being more integrated, then the self can also have greater navigational potentials through the body-mind to expand consciousness and know its identity independent of experience. If you had never experienced anything in your whole life, would you know who you are, and would that you actually feel like your most authentic self? If you had never experienced anything, if you had no memory of ever experiencing anything in life, would you know who you are, and would that you feel like the truest you? This is coming from a pretty interesting place, because I literally could not remember any of my life during my Implicit Revelations case study in previous times. You can explore more about my personal journey through the Becoming Known Through Implicit Revelations known documentary series available here. It's a playlist of it. It's pretty interesting. So there's integration of brain-body structures, body-mind wiring to improve navigation and regulation, but integration has nothing to do with the self from the modalities that I've created and utilized. Reunification is all about the self, has nothing to do with brain-body wiring. We're not reunifying pieces of data in the body. And we're not integrating parts of the self. We're not taking these parts of the self and smushing them together so they become a different version of the self. We're not integrating the self. We're not reunifying brain-body wiring. We integrate brain-body wiring and we reunify parts of the self. And those are two different realities that actually occur simultaneously, and they complement each other. But they're different occurrences, different miracles happening. So what happens? So as brain-body wiring integrates, then there's better and improved and expanded styles of navigation and regulation in the body-mind. So what happens when we reunify parts of self? This is where things get really miraculous. And this is why I love these modalities I've developed, because they are like fireworks exploding from the brain. There's probably not a good imitation of that, but just pretend that it was really cool and there was lots of fireworks exploding from the brain and your mind is being blown. When there's parts of self being reunified, when there's parts of self being reunified, you actually experience your own existence in a way that you have never known before. When parts of self reunify, there are no automated projections of reality, and you get to project reality in each moment because you're using the power of consciousness to choose navigation and regulation instead of having the automated unconscious projections of brain-body wiring dictate experiences for consciousness. And as you cultivate loving liberation and self-reunification, that becomes an inner skill set you can apply more and more in everyday moments. When you experience reunification, you start to encounter your own existence in a way you've never known before. You start to meet parts of yourself in a way you've never known before. You start to feel like you in a way you've never known before. Because what happens is more parts of self are connected in the self. And when that happens, then there's not all parts over here and 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 parts over here. Everyone's welcomed home. And a classic example of this is, let's say you're moving through your everyday moments and you've got a thought about that one thing you need to do, and you have this memory of that one time, and you have kind of this emotion going on over here, and you have this projection of, okay, I think I'm going to go do this thing, whether that's, some kind of bodily movement, some kind of daily habit, some kind of action pattern, some kind of approach tendency. And there's all of these things going on. You're like, yeah, I'm going to run that errand, and I need to do this thing, and there's this thing going on, and I need to check on that, and I wonder how that's going, and I'm feeling this emotion, and this emotion, and this emotion, and this emotion, and my body's telling me I need to go reach for this and do this. And there's all these different projections of navigation happening. In that moment, there's parts of self in body-mind wiring within each of those projections. Okay, each of those projections are coming from a different region of body-mind wiring that isn't fully integrated. Because when the body-mind wiring is fully integrated and the self is reunified, the body-mind doesn't have a variety of navigational projections simultaneously. The body-mind has a unified navigational system that only suggests 1 to 3 navigational potentials at a time, and then the self can choose which one to focus on, if any. And the body-mind is in full submission to the power of the self. But before that happens, there might be like 10 different projections of thoughts, feelings, and action patterns. And in that process, there's regions of the body-mind wiring that are projecting each of that style of navigation, and there's parts of self in each of those regions of body-mind wiring, which means instead of the self being here with the self, a part of the self is in that feeling, a part of the self is in that action pattern, a part of the self is in that experience, a part of the self is in that projection, a part of the self, and then it's scattered energy, if you want to use that term. It's scattered energy. The energy of the self isn't here. It's there. And so in the process of integration, the brain and the body have this improved, upgraded, updated, expanded version of navigation and regulation beyond awareness. The content is improved and expanded, uplifted. The connectivity improved, expanded, uplifted. There's greater connections, better content, improved navigation and regulation. But in that process, the self is being reunified, and all that energy of self is coming back home to the self instead of being scattered throughout brain-body wiring and personal experience. The process of reunification allows the energy of self to return to the self rather than being scattered throughout brain-body wiring and personal experience. And as that energy of self comes home, then the self has so much energy within the self that it can expand and start to know its identity independent of experience and independent of automated projections from the brain-body wiring. But before that happens, the energy of self is so scattered in personal experience, the energy of self is so scattered in the brain-body wiring that it cannot possibly know who it is beyond experience. It cannot possibly understand that it has an identity beyond the automations of what brain-body wiring has taught the self to be. That there is a way of associating with the self beyond the automated unconscious self-associations that have been taught to the body-mind through experience, now stored in unconscious projections beyond awareness. And so throughout all of my work and all of the journeys that I share, one of the intentions, which can be adjusted to, fit each individual perfectly, but in a generalized sense, one of the potential intentions that can be fulfilled through these journeys and practices is integration of brain-body wiring and reunification of self, but those are not the same things. because the self exists and operates independently of brain-body structures. The self is never integrating itself. The self is reunifying, liberating, and expanding its energy and its essence. Simultaneously, the brain and the body are resculpting its information to improve and expand and upgrade and update how the body-mind can navigate and regulate existence in support of the self. And as the brain and the body integrate, as this body-mind data integrates, there's naturally a process of reunification. And when you focus on reunifying self aspects, it also helps to naturally create integration and healing upgrades and transformation and expansion for the brain-body wiring that is supporting existence for consciousness in the human form. And so I invite you to explore this idea in your own personal journey. Firstly, what is your experience with integration and or, because they're different things, self-reunification? Secondly, is there a need for integration or self-reunification? And that might be actually a pretty tricky question to answer because it might not feel like there is a need. But I guarantee you there's always room for expansion into greater integration and reunification. Because the brain and the body are housing trillions of navigational networks that affect regulatory protocols beyond awareness. And so even if billions of those networks are perfectly integrated, there could still be a billion networks that aren't. And so there's always space for expanded integration. There's always space to connect deeper with the foundation of essence and existence. There's always space to upgrade and improve the capacity to feel positive emotions. There's always space to upgrade and improve the capacity to have really healthy daily habits. There's always capacity to improve our breathing capacity and different miracles of brain-body regulation. There's always potentials for greater left-right brain hemispheric integration and balance. And it might not be an obvious need, but there might be some subtle room for expansion where life could improve if you did invest in that. And as far as self-reunification, how do you know if that's something you need? If you can get to a place where you can look in a mirror and stare in your eyes and feel like you have the entire world because you are so whole inside of yourself, then you're halfway self-unified. If you cannot look in a mirror and look in your eyes and feel like you have the entire world because you are so whole within yourself, then you definitely need some reunification. That's my interpretation. Even if you can look in a mirror and feel completely whole, like you have the whole world because you're so unified in yourself, you're still only about halfway to the potential of what you can experience with self-reunification. So secondly, I invite you to explore, is there space in your life where integration and or self-reunification could improve your experience? Even if there's not something that's challenging and difficult you need to resolve and heal and clearly is disrupting life and you need to address it, even if there's nothing obvious like that, could integration and or reunification improve your life, expand the quality of your experience, expand the potential of how you can navigate your own existence from the inside out, expand the potential to have new thought forms, new sensations, new feelings, new emotions, new action patterns, new habits, new ideas, new navigational patterns, new regulatory protocols, new levels of feeling connected with yourself, new levels of feeling unified and whole within yourself, new levels of feeling like you know who you are beyond what you've experienced. And thirdly, I invite you to explore what's one thing you can do in your daily life to encourage integration and or reunification. And if you want to dive deeper into either of those, one or both, One is focused on brain-body wiring. One is focused on aspects of the self as pure soul essence, pure consciousness. And they positively affect each other, but you can focus on just one if one resonates or feels more comfortable to you, or you can focus on both. But if you want to dive deeper into integration and or self-reunification, I invite you to explore my offerings. Each of my offerings provides journeys and practices and concepts and techniques and brand new revolutionary modalities that can create integration and reunification to spark loving liberation in the most transformative, transcendent way, in an accelerated pace of quantum catalyzers, and more effortlessly and enjoyably than you've ever known. Implicit resolution allows us to resolve an implicit health challenge and really focus on that integration of brain-body wiring to improve implicit health. Self-reunification naturally happens as a side effect of that. Reborn as infinite love allows us to explore how consciousness flows through brain-body wiring. And so we're exploring this process in a completely new way. And you have these amazing tools and modalities to understand and really reclaim power in them in the most beautiful way imaginable. And the most powerful of my journeys for this exact process are Mirrorthons. Guided Mirrorthons allow us to unveil spaces of the brain and the body that need some integration, parts of the self that could really use some reunification. And then a personalized Mirrorthon prescription allows you to nourish internal attachment needs through practices of social self-engagement that are fun and easy and gentle and loving and kind and nourishing and playful and sweet. And that process naturally creates integration and reunification in the most powerful way. It is truly a quantum catalyst because 5, 10, 15 minutes in a Mirrorthon, and if you're ready for more, especially if you put in 30 minutes to an hour in a Mirrorthon every day, can create more integration and reunification in a month than other practices can do in 10 years. I kid you not. A few weeks in daily Mirrorthons can change your life more than so many practices that I've learned about, where you could do them consistently with dedication for over a decade and not get nearly the results you get from a few weeks of Mirrorthoning. So if you're interested in diving deeper into your journey of integration and or self-reunification, I invite you to explore my work. From the one-on-one journeys with me, I also have self-guided journeys. So if you're not ready to be like, hey, Kristin, let's hang out for an hour every week and let's do this thing together. And you're like, I just want to do this on my own, privately, don't look at me, don't talk to me. I totally get that too. I have self-guided journeys, and those courses are what parts of my inner best friend used when there was a massive, dire need for integration and reunification. And those journeys changed my life and allowed me to be who and where I am today. I am only physically alive and healthy and functional and lucid and things because of how powerful these self-guided journeys are. They changed my life. And in the greatest depths of darkness, where there is nothing else that could have helped, no other modality or pathway or helper or healer of any kind that could have reached the space of difficulty that was being faced. And these self-guided journeys created all the change that was needed. And they really help with the reunification and integration. I switched up the hand gestures. They really helped with the integration and reunification. They help to resculpt brain-body structures easily and effortlessly, and they help to bring parts of the self home with greater connection with each other. There's SelfLOVE Liberation, Implicit Transformation. There's over a dozen self-guided journeys. You can explore each of them. Beautiful web pages that share all about them, and you can find which one is right for you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. I hope you have a beautiful and blessed day, and I invite you to explore, where are you at on your journey with integration and reunification? Is your brain and body totally connected? Is data from every year of your life, all of the conscious and unconscious navigational patterns, all the sensations of feeling and movement, all of it unified, all of it connected, all of it integrated, all of it fully processed, all of it effectively stored. Navigation, regulation, 100% maximum health. And what about that reunification? How connected are you with yourself? How unified are you with yourself? How whole are you within your own being? And a fun way to explore this is, if you had never experienced anything in your life, would you know who you are, and would that you actually feel like your true self? And that is a really good way to explore self-reunification. Because again, the self exists and operates independently of brain-body structures. So we're not looking at this to assess this. We can, because they're connected. But if you really want to know how unified you are with yourself, ask yourself, if I had never experienced anything in my whole life, if I had no awareness of my existence in human form, if I didn't understand anything outside of me, would I know who I am and would I feel like myself? And if I look in a mirror and stare in my eyes, do I feel so whole that I feel like I have the whole world because I have all of me? That's a good way to assess the unification of your self-essence. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. You can explore all my offerings in the video description. I hope you have a beautiful and blessed day. Oh, there's also a really fun merchandise store, by the way. It's super cool. Check it out.